14 people were injured when a fight broke out in a patisserie.
New research from tobacco companies suggesting cigarettes may double your IQ was...
Eyewitnesses say that one eyewitness lost an eye, although other eyewitnesses claim that...
Now, as we've been following all this week, preparations are underway all over the
country for events to mark tomorrow's anniversary of the middle of World War II. Halfway There Day, or SOB Friday as it became affectionately known, was the
point at which the Allies' struggle to defeat Adolf Hitler's Germany reached its halfway mark. Preparations
are underway all over the country for events to mark tomorrow's anniversary. And today our
reporter Katie Willard is in Kent to see how preparations are going there. Kate, where are you?
Yes, indeed, Francis. I'm here at Newchurch Airfield in Kent, now a private airfield. But back in 1942, this was very much a wartime place to be.
A scan after the game suggested his leg was still alive and it was taken to nearby Harrington Hospital for further examination. Isley is expected to be fit in time to play in next week's big game against Hull.
Motor racing now, and Rubens Barrichello's suspected hamstring injury has now been confirmed as a broken arm.
It's going to be an amazing day of celebrations in the capital. Here's just a few of the highlights. In Ladbroke Grove, watch out for the Battle of Britain aerial skateboard display. Vauxhall Underground Station will be holding a recreation of an air raid. Visitors will be encouraged to sleep over for 3 days and 3 nights. In St John's Wood, residents will be able to claim a free latte until lunchtime. Meanwhile, Hyde Park boasts an open-air reggae festival. That's going to be a popular destination, I think. In Stoke Newington, you can help a record-breaking attempt to make the world's biggest baba ganoush. In the East End, there'll be a pearly reenactment of the Blitz, whatever that means. And the climax of the day, on the stroke of midnight, the Thames will be turned into a river of fire. It's never been done before, and it promises to be an amazing spectacle.
ESN News with Katie Tate and Richard Pritchard. Stay with us.
Still to come up later, butter side up, how toast can improve your sex life.
Road to nowhere. Suggestions tonight that the M25, Britain's busiest road, could be scrapped because it doesn't actually go anywhere.
As well, of course, as Canadians. But 864 Squadron was actually a New Zealand squadron. And one of those brave new young Zealanders who survived the war actually stayed in England and married his wartime sweetheart. And over here is someone who's got very good cause to be glad he did. Now, Julia Redfern, if your father Jim hadn't come over here, hadn't been stationed here at Newchurch, then you wouldn't be here at all, would you?
No, that's right. I wouldn't be here. He met my mother in the summer of 1942, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Indeed, you must be very proud of him.
Actually, yes, I am very proud.
Now, I believe you've still got a number of items from the uniform that your father actually wore.
Yes, I have.
Good. Now, one of the sadder aspects of tomorrow's commemorations of Halfway There Day is that with every passing year, there are fewer and fewer of those alive today.
Bringing with it brighter, flowerier weather with spells of fluffiness building up in some...
If we look at the effect on the allergy quotient, we can see that it could be as high as 7 in some of the filthier areas.
Longer outbreaks of rain or drizzle over the more southerly areas of Paraguay, really from Puerto Presidente down through.
Welcome to Look Out East with Phil Curdridge and Sarah Holt.
The utmost stories from around this region where you are tonight.
Outrage as plans are unveiled to build Europe's biggest working eyesore in Suffolk.
In Lowestoft, another man arrested for trafficking illegal suppositories.
All that plus, we take a walk down memory lane as preparations continue to commemorate Halfway There Day across the region tomorrow.
And talking of memory lane, Russ is here with the weather prospects, aren't you, Russ?
Indeed I am, Phil, indeed I am.
You probably remember Halfway There Day yourself, don't you?
I'm not quite that old, Sarah.
You actually think Russ has probably forgotten where memory lane is, haven't you, Russ?
Steady on, Phil, steady on.
Moving swiftly on.
Let's not go there.
Don't go there.
Honestly, you boys. More from Russ later.
Yes, indeed.
Now, fears are growing tonight for the safety of a Diss family who have failed to return home from a barbecue 4 months ago. Norfolk police have launched a...
Harold Snook was just 21 years old on Halfway There Day, but now, as a sprightly 85-year-old, he's been visiting St Mary's Primary School once a week to tell the children there about his experiences as a fighter pilot based here at Newchurch all those years ago. Harold, how do you feel about becoming a hero all over again?
Pardon?
The idea is the brainchild of teacher Linda Hill. Linda, hi.
Hello.
Now, I understand as part of the celebrations tomorrow, your class here are going to be performing a song which they've written and composed specially about Harold and which they're going to be singing for us now.
Yes, that's right, yes. They've written all the words and the music themselves.
Wonderful. Well, when you're ready, take it away. Well, as you can see, many thought-provoking emotions here in Kent tonight as tomorrow's Halfway There Day commemorations approach. Katie Willard, PVS News, Kent.
Happy
A spokesman for Fudders later confirmed that an employee had earlier lost a finger in an accident, but had not reported it because he was convinced it would show up. Meanwhile, Mr. Stower is saying he probably won't be trying frozen chocolate custard again anytime soon. Miles Anderton for IBS News in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Miles Anderton there with what I guess you have to call that chilling report.
Whew. Can I open my eyes now? Is it safe?
It's 10 after 5.
Okay, a little chocolate chip, maybe some of those little nutty things at the most, but some guy's finger, that is not an ice cream.
And of course it starts to get serious when you think of the legal implications.
Starts to get serious. Well, it's already serious. You got a knuckle in your custard, that's a serious situation.
You know, there was that case with the granola a while back in Los Angeles. Same thing happened. Before you know it, they're suing the employees for millions of dollars of lost sales.
Yeah, I don't get it. Do you think these guys would take better care of their fingers? It's not like they're hard to control. They're right there on the end of your hand.
It's 10 after 5.
You want fewer fingers? You join the wrong species.
More on those tragic SUV murders in Nebraska coming up, but right now it's time for a worldwide weather-wide update with Alicia.
Julia, thank you.
Tell us something nice, Alicia.
Well, Anthony, I can tell you this. If you're living in Wuhan, China right now, you're going to need all the fingers you got. If we take a look...
The Bank of England downplaying suggestions that interest rates will need to be adjusted radically in the coming months.
Eh? Surely they've lost the plot on this one, haven't they? They've all gone tonto. You can see plain as Poppadons a slump's going to come and smack us in the dibdabs. All the signs are there. So when the rain comes, we're going to see the nieces pushing the uncles down the Cheshire trouser pipes, aren't we?
Well,
Elton John trips over a chihuahua and breaks his nose.
He's not still standing.
Bang! Killer line!
If I carry on like this, they'll want me for murder.
And finally, Paris Hilton's cameo in The Simpsons is cut because her acting is just so bad.
Turns out, as well as being a girl who can't say no, she's also a girl who can't say don't!
It's gold! We've hit the comedy gold. This is it right here.
Somebody call the emergency services. I'm on fire.
I wondered what that unpleasant smell was.
No, that's because I haven't had a shower. And speaking of dirt, it's time to join our man in La La Land. Josh, how's the wacky world of California?
The usual dreary round of glamorous premieres and star-studded parties. It's hell. Honey, I bet you're so glad you're not me.
In so many ways I am.
So, Josh, we hear Ricky Evans is in the news.
Oh, mercy!
63 years ago tomorrow, when the mere thought of having made the halfway point brought a smile to their young faces, allowing them brief respite from the daily diet of sardines, fear and death.
Thanks, Sarah. And I'm happy to report a lot of delays around the country today, with a lot of traffic standing at a standstill still, being slowed down by a high volume of slow-moving traffic ahead of it. Elsewhere now. A186, Fiddler's Elbow, inside lane, hard shoulder, slip road, exit slip road and outside lane, all closed northbound and southbound, eastbound and westbound between junctions 11A and 12. Long tailbacks leading to inadvertent speed restrictions coming into force there. A322, suspect flyover, very slow.
The effect of this is going to be some quite high sinus levels, I'm afraid, particularly in the more southerly areas where it could get up as high as the low 400s in some of the more...
Later in the day, with some warmer air moving down through Tibet and into the Bhutan region by tea time.
Coming up, should we flee the country? Apparently we should. But why and how and to where? Stay...
In Pakistan, 28
people are feared fatally dead when a packed minibus full of suicide bombers collides with...
Could men become illegal? That's the...
But first...
Coming up
shortly.
This boy is the biggest disaster area since Michael Jackson's face.
So, Josh, what's the scoop, Snoop?
2 words. Off the rails. I've hyphenated those last 2 words, FYI, for your information. He's just gone Fruit Loop Doolally. We're talking next stop, Insanityville.
More from Russ later.
Inevitably so, Sarah, inevitably so.
Now, of course, as Sarah was saying earlier, 63 years ago tomorrow is the anniversary of Halfway There Day. And right across the region, people will be out in force to try and remember what that means. And as Nick Andrews discovered, tomorrow promises to be an almost unbearably emotional day for one 85-year-old Becclesman.
63 years ago tomorrow, the British wartime people may have allowed themselves a cup of reflective tea as they reached the halfway stage in the war against Adolf Hitler's Germany. But they knew now that there was at least as far to go again if it was ever going to end. On that day, Anthony Dixon was a 22-year-old Spitfire pilot facing certain death every day. Now he's one 85-year-old man in Beccles, for whom it all still seems just like yesterday.
It all seems a jolly long time ago now, I must say.
For him, tomorrow will be a day to remember the time when, as a young man at the age of just 22, he knew that the chances of him surviving the 63 years in order to remember, as an 85-year-old, the time when, as a young man of just 22...
A666, Devil's Haircut, expect long delays when traffic starts moving. AA53, Stadler's Waldorf, even more cars. A64595, Fruit Corner, cars. A46...
Together with quantities of industrial-strength mustard hidden inside bottles of fabric conditioner. Police believe the men plan to mix the mustard with quantities of gas to form the deadly gas mustard gas, which would then be released in confined spaces where people gather to breathe, such as London and Sheffield, with consequences that could potentially have been inevitable.
And Dick, presumably there's a deep sense of shock all around you in that neighbourhood tonight.
Indeed so, Francis, very deep indeed. I have to say there's almost a sense of disbelief here tonight that two men who neighbours describe as polite and never hear could be capable of mass murder on any scale, let alone slaughter of this magnitude. Francis.
Dick, thank you. Richard Harbinger there in Wolverhampton.
That report from Richard Harbinger in Wolverhampton. Rick, thanks.
Now, as we've been following all this...
And the board seem to be signalling that may not be the case, so sadly back to square one for Marks and Spencer's.
Aren't we all sick to the needles of this one, Mitchell? It seems like every year it's the same thing and we're having to yak on about how M&S do nice underwear and lovely grub. Why don't they just combine the two core things? Edible pants.
What? It's very hard to say at this stage, Philip, and even that might just be speculation. We're being told that police will be holding a press conference sometime later today. But of course, exactly what that means is another matter altogether. What we do know is that the people of this sleepy market town are in a state of rural shock. Wiltshire is a very tight-knit community of grim-faced people, and no one here that I have talked to today has told me anything worth...
That really was rather unpleasant. But one got on with it.
And what are your memories of Halfway There Day itself?
Well, the trouble with Halfway There Day was that, of course, at the time, one had no bloody idea which day it actually was, until the day that the war had ended.
Right, but apart from that, though, looking back on it now, what were your emotions at the time?
Well, didn't really have emotions, one just got on with it. There was no other option.
Right, but apart from that...
Out searching the fields around the town itself, square metre by square metre. But so far they have found absolutely no sign of specially trained sniffer dogs or thermal imaging devices.
A118, gay interchange, as you can see. A212, back.
He got arrested in a park one night for allegedly molesting a salamander. And after that, he held a press conference where he said, I quote, "I know you're trying to steal my face, but it's not going to happen. My face is staying where it belongs, on the front of my head."
Foiled a major terrorist plot to poison up to hundreds of thousands of ordinary people with the deadly toxin mustard gas. The people live in cities such as London and the northern city of Sheffield. Stay with us.
Still to come. You're watching ESN News with Katie Tate and Richard Pritchard.
So, as the number of people in the population who can expect to be slaughtered in the next few years rises, what effect will this have on house prices?
Amanda Panda has been out and about to find out.
Stay with us. Still to come.
A familiar scene. A terraced street in a desirable part of...
Changed women's lives forever, with many of them learning new skills such as driving bombs or moving tiny replica arrows around giant walls, using only stepladders and their natural sense of
In the meantime, for the people of this nondescript provincial town somewhere in Wiltshire, the waiting goes on. When that waiting will be over, or indeed what it is they're waiting for, is almost impossible to...
Oh yeah, he drove to Mexico, got drunk, got a quickie wedding with a dwarf hooker, passed out, woke up, forgotten he'd done it, did it again, but married a different dwarf hooker, got arrested for bigamy. Or should I say smallamy?
Josh, that is quite weird.
Tell me about it. I mean, how do you find more than one dwarf hooker to get down with? And I mean really down with. I don't know, it blows my mind. Holy moly, whoa, Joe! And other things that, like, you know, rhyme and stuff.
Not going to be able to go home that way. Oof, no. Oh dear. Well, that's a dinky little moped.
But what did that mean in real terms? Well, here are the statistics. In chronological terms, we were exactly 50% through the war. However, only as little as 29.7% of the war had actually been won. In geographical terms, only 21% of battlegrounds had been taken. At home, we were already feeling the pinch, with 42% of all ladies' stockings being...
And once this has sheared away south, we should find dearer, waftier air breezing in behind.
Will eventually move away down towards Kazakhstan, with brighter, showerier weather moving in behind it.
All that still to come. But first, Still to come.
In Rome, Pope Benedict XVI urges the world's 5 billion Catholics to spend less time indoors.
And the end of the road for rain, as the idea of free water falling from the sky finally bites the dust. We have an affectionate look back at our relationship with the gardener's friend. But first, as the nation gears up to celebrate Halfway There Day, here's Melanie with the Standing News.
Katie, thank you. I'm Melanie Bellamy, and this is the Standing News. As the nation prepares to commemorate Halfway There Day, final preparations are underway for tomorrow's parade in central London, where surviving veterans will be joined by members of today's armed forces, the Queen and other members of the royal family, and senior politicians. Our significant occasions correspondent Nicholas Michaelmas is in Whitehall. Nick, what can you tell us about how much we know about the route the parade will take?
Melanie, the route will follow that taken by many memorable state occasions down through the Mall. The parade will start in Hyde Park at midday with a full 21-gun salute. It will then leave the park before making its way movingly down Constitution Hill, past Buckingham Palace, down the Mall, before turning right into Whitehall and ending up pretty much where I'm walking now.
And Nick, for many of those involved, this is presumably going to be a very moving occasion.
Melanie, very moving indeed. I was speaking to some of the veterans who've made their way to London especially for this occasion, and although they didn't say so themselves, you get a real sense of just how moving this is likely to be.
Of course, there is a serious issue here, and it's actually quite tragic, and we shouldn't mock.
So, if he's having a breakdown, why doesn't his agent put him in a clinic?
Exactly.
Exactly what, Josh?
Exactly. He's not having a breakdown. He's doing it for the publicity.
So it's a case of all publicity is good publicity?
No way. No one looks good with publicity this bad. He might as well have set fire to a rabbi. It's hideous. His career is all...
Sean Kiernan has become the 8th fastest English player to score 2 goals on an international debut after having already debuted for another country in the women's game, if that makes sense.
Heath Armstrong's attempt to become the fastest ever person to cycle round the world ended in bizarre fashion yesterday when he collided with Jansen Burl, who was bidding to become the fastest man to drive round the world the other way. Armstrong is...
I'm Anita Drachapthani, and this is 15 Seconds in 15 Seconds. The headlines this hour. Here, it's that time again. There, it's that man again. And sport, golf. That's it for now, and more later.
And Nick, what's your overall sense of how moving this whole occasion is likely to be?
Melanie, there's a very real sense here that this could indeed be seriously moving.
Are you dead from the neck up? He's more famous than he's ever been. Everyone is hooked. This is better than crack. Best thing ever!
Biggest story of the year?
No way.
Josh, we're going to have to leave it there.
Hand! That's have a nice day, FYI.
Liking that. Now,
police are working on a number of other theories about the Johnsons' whereabouts, including that they may simply have got lost on the way back from the barbecue and may still be trying to find their way back here to their house. Or that they're actually in there somewhere, but won't come out for some reason. But as time goes increasingly on, the worry now is that this young family may already have been abducted, and in one way or another, butchered to death. Penny Watson, Look Out East, Dis.
Penny Watson there in Dis. Worrying story.
Yes, it certainly is. Dangerous things, barbecues.
Yep.
What do you make of them, Russ?
Barbecues? Well, I'm actually a bit partial to a bit of a fire-up.
So I've heard.
Russ, you are a dark horse.
Well, I have to say, Sarah, it's a while since I've been called a horse.
Now then.
Don't go there.
Best not.
You never know when the wife's watching.
Indeed you don't,
And the
Philip.
last thing anybody wants to do is upset Mrs. Russ.
Indeed not.
No.
More from Russ later.
Indeed so.
Now, suppositories. There was a time when hardly any of us...
So if you are thinking of going out beagling tomorrow, not a bad idea to think about putting your head in a hat, because by the middle of the day...
With the odd clap of thunder possible anywhere, really, from as far west as Burundi, right across towards Kimbababo in the...
On that day, 63 years ago in 1942, when so many of those who'll be gathering here tomorrow to remember never made it. Melanie.
Nick, thank you.
In London tonight, where some of the biggest stars in the world of pop music are
gathering for the Maddie Awards, traditionally the music industry's biggest
night of the year. Our popular culture correspondent Zoe Butler is there, rubbing shoulders with the stars. Zoe, has it gone as smoothly as the organisers hoped it would, or has there been a repeat of last year's controversies?
Yes, Francis, very much so. Pretty much anyone who's ever been anyone is likely to become anyone, or anyone in between anyone is...
Huge buzz on the markets with the suggestion the internet firm might be the biggest flotation in the last decade.
Well, you know what I'm going to say to this, right?
No.
Well, whoop-de-doo, poop-de-pip and shizzle-my-gazizzle. You mention the words dot and slash or com, everyone still goes boss-eyed chipmunk doolally. Isn't this just a case of, oh look, I've got sparkly slippers, everyone stampeding down the fairground to gorge themselves on toffee apples? I mean, we all like to waltz on the Big Dippers and come off smiling, nice chunk of fudge, bag full of goldfish, but we're over that now, aren't we?
Well, as you know, ESN news reporter Nick Burnham is in space, embedded with the current NASA team on the International Space Station, and he joins me live now. Nick, have there been any celebrations on board to mark Halfway There Day?
No celebrations, Melanie, no. There is a time and a place for festivities, and although the time may be now, this most definitely isn't the place.
I caught up with some of the nominees earlier today and asked them who they thought was going to win. Who do you think is going to win?
Me.
Me?
Us.
Them. As you can see, Francis, all those verdicts are pretty unanimous, if that is a word.
And tell me, Zoe, has it gone as smoothly as the organisers hoped it would, or has there been a repeat of last year's controversies?
Very much so, Francis. There certainly isn't, and many of them are actually here.
Quite whether it's possible to sleep with 3 different women at 3 different hotels at the same time when at least one of them is apparently already dead is what I guess for the moment you'd have to call a legal nicety. This is Lauren Peterson for IBS News, Los Angeles.
Lauren Peterson there at the Vicente trial in Los Angeles. This is IBS News. You're watching Anthony Markovitz and Julia Reagan. Anthony, that is some story unfolding in that courtroom.
It is. I got to say, even though you just know the guy is guilty, if he was throwing a party, you'd kind of want to be at it, wouldn't you?
A lot of people are saying that it's a story that's emblematic of our times.
Here's what I don't get. You're married to Deborah Shelby. That's Deborah Shelby. And you discover she's having a lesbian affair with a girl you're already cheating on her with, and you murder her? Why?
It's coming up to 5:30.
Why would you do this? That's the real crime here. I can't get over it.
Time for Alicia with some more weather news.
Julia, thank you.
It's like murdering Santa Claus. It's insane.
Julia, we've got a tornado warning in place for you tonight out over the Kansas.
All that coming up later on Film and Movie News. But first, a special interview with comic legend Dan Hunter, writer-director of Digging a Hole, Carrie and Joe, and the soon-to-be-released This Is the Justice. He came in and spoke to Film and Movie News earlier in the week. Dan Hunter, thanks very much for joining us. You're probably the top comedy writer, performer and director of our time. You're the comedian's comedian, a legend in the industry. I'm a huge, huge fan, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the show.
It's good to be here.
Before I begin, I would just like to say I've been following your work for as long as I can remember, and the happiest, most joy-filled moments of my life are down to you. I'd like to thank you for that from the bottom of my heart. You are without doubt
We did observe a half-a-minute silence, of course, earlier on, and in that silence, we thought our private thoughts, maybe even shed some tears, but then just 30 seconds later, our normal silence resumed, and everyone turned their backs on me and got on with whatever it was they were doing.
Nick, I imagine a half-a-minute silence in space is a very quiet silence.
Melanie, it is, yes.
He's already walked off with 2 bongs, so I don't think we'll be seeing him again this evening.
So, Zoe, has it gone as smoothly as the organisers hoped it would, or has there been a repeat of last year's controversies?
Very much so, Francis. You can smell the excitement with a knife.
Of 21-year-old Ken Broadbent, then a young man of just 21, who set off from Brighton in August 1942, walked under the channel to avoid enemy radar, and emerged on the beaches of Normandy in February 1943, still carrying his secret message.
Digging a Hole was one of the funniest things I think I've ever seen. I remember I laughed so hard I actually swallowed my tongue. I had to be given emergency first aid there and then in the cinema. If there hadn't been a student nurse sitting in front of me.
How the markets might react to a merger between 2 such giants in this sector. That one's to you, Michelle Wong.
I'm sorry, Dan, I didn't catch that.
The question was how the markets might...
No, I'm sorry, Dan, I'm not hearing you.
Sorry, Michelle. Obviously, we've lost you temporarily. Francis Xavier, what was your take on the Saxmore-Darlow merger? Apparently, we can't go to Francis. Kyoko, what's the reaction out in Tokyo? Well...
And Nick, will there be a packet of freeze-dried champagne ripped open when work is done?
Melanie, no, there won't.
Well, we'll have a drink for you down here, shall we?
Yes, do that.
Nick, thank you. Nick Burnham there in space.
Melanie, thank Thank you. Melanie Bellamy there with the standing news. Coming up.
You're watching ESN News with Katie Tate and Richard Pritchard. Still to come.
The main headlines still to come so far tonight.
Plus a reminder of our top stories coming up later.
But first, if you want to have more sex, get a bigger toaster. That's the conclusion of a new scientific...
I remember that scene with the kitten. I had I had tears right down my face. I was wet. I was actually wet. I wet myself, and they had to wipe me. And it was with the...
Tom, we've clearly got some gremlins at the moment. What was New York's verdict on all this? Oh dear. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Dan.
Oh good. Brett, what was the verdict out in Australia?
Oh, well, obviously it hasn't had any impact here because of the time difference.
Yes, of course, but when the City Boys do open their newspapers or websites or emails to read about this, what do you think their verdict will be?
No, Dan, I think I've lost you.
Have you?
Yep, I've definitely lost you.
Okay, well, that's a shame. Well...
The middle of the war was a turning point. That's from Jagdip. Thanks for that, Jagdip.
I'm not a Nazi sympathiser, but why is it the British media never show any sympathy for the Nazis? That's from Kate in Ashford.
Western areas of Scotland, where we're looking at a midge index of 11 or perhaps 12 in some of those midgier...
So if you are thinking about nipping out for a bit of bacon, it might be worth making sure you've got something on your feet, because just...
Maybe a little bit of fog or mist lingering, particularly in low-lying coastal areas around Miyakanojo and Shimonoseki. But by morning this should...
We remember the war, but we still have wars. Ironic, isn't it? Interesting point from Colin in Maidstone.
If the middle of the war had gone differently, then everything would have been different. No one ever thinks about that, do they? It's an interesting take there from Alan in Norfolk.
I have herpes, but I don't let it ruin my life. That's from Kaz in Chalfont St Peter. I think that's in relation to our earlier report on STIs.
Animals don't have wars, they just sit around having a...
Oh, Dan Hunter, thank you so much for joining us.
I hope you're okay.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure and a personal highlight of my life. I look forward to seeing a new film, Swallowing My Tongue and Dying Happy. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Dan Hunter there, the greatest living comedian of our time, and possibly any time. How depressing, then, to discover in real life he's one of the most miserable, unpleasant and unfunny men you could ever have the misfortune to come across. Spending an hour with the man is about as life-affirming as watching a cute little seal being clubbed to death in front of a weeping orphan. He's about as good-natured as Hitler in a traffic jam, with all the charm of an angry, drunk Australian who likes to fart at funerals. Honestly, you could have more fun eating nothing but tinfoil for a month. By the end of the year...
But not so good, of course, for those of you who suffer from those heat-related rashes, with an itch count of between 50...
And lost both his legs, but did he complain about it? Of course he did. It ruined his life. That's from Joyce in Macclesfield.
Your coverage of the war is anemic and sentimentalised and does nothing to convey the sheer brutal horror of what went on. You should show more mutilated bodies and explosions, says Roger in East Dulwich.
When veterans of the Normandy campaign gathered together in Ely Cathedral last night to remember and celebrate the fact that just as they weren't on that day 63 years ago, they're still not dead. James Flint, Lookout East, Ely.
Fascinating stuff.
Certainly is.
Makes you feel very humble.
They were so young too.
Yeah, mind you, they look pretty sprightly for their age now.
Don't they just?
We'll just have to hope we look that good when we're 85.
Oh, don't, please.
Mind you, Russ isn't doing so bad. You know, you must be nearly in your 80s by now, aren't you?
Not far off, Philip. Yes, it certainly feels like it sometimes, especially with my stiff...
En route from Chicago.